Hi, folks. In this video, I want to offer you one strategy for finding emotional well-being in over the course of conflicts, which is recognizing what your interests are and finding ways to protect them or promote them outside of the conflict relationship. So to return to module 2, interests are anything that we care about. It can be our financial security, it can be physical safety, it can be our reputation, but it can also be some things that seem like they seem more altruistic, that don't seem like interests, but are in fact motivating to us. They're things that we care about, and when those things are threatened, um, we feel threatened. So that might be a commitment to racial justice, or a concern for the environment, or for the well-being of children, or the fair treatment of workers. So it's anything that we feel that we have a stake in can be an interest. Now, whenever we feel that our interests are threatened, we should expect to have strong emotional reactions. Um, and if you'll go with me for a minute, that's almost a tautological statement I've just made. I've almost made kind of a circular argument. Because the way I understand emotions, the definition of an emotion and an interest are all kind of bound up together. So I'm drawing here on Tom Cochrane's account of emotions in The Emotional Mind, which is a philosophy of emotion, but he's drawing on all kinds of neuroscience. And he argues, and this is similar to Martha Nussbaum's argument, both of which are in the optional assigned readings, if you are interested in learning more about what an emotion is. So we all have emotions, but what is this thing that we're experiencing? So Cochrane argues that an emotion, that we have emotions, and that other animals have emotions because they help us act in our environment in ways that keep us alive. And they do that by helping us promote our interests. So basic interests for like food, water, offspring, but also that as humans, we acquire more and more interest through socialization. We come to care about things other than just our basic survival needs. But the emotions fundamentally are our bodies, our nervous system's ability to scan the environment and to pick up on all this kind of sense data: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, this sort of overwhelming mass of information, and to make sense of what is going on around us in ways that help us know, how are our interests doing in the world? Like, are we safe? Do we have enough food? Are our children well? Do we feel that we have a sense of belonging? Are we respected and valued by our community? Which for humans is essential to survival. And a lot of other interests are derivative of that basic need to feel that we belong. So emotions result from our body's ability to scan the environment, take in all this sensory data, and then make sense of it in terms of like, how does this impact me and my interests? And then secondarily, emotions are your body's way of gearing you up to act in ways that are appropriate, in ways that respond to your environmental conditions, so as to protect or to promote your interests. So if you feel fear when you realize, that thing, sorry, oh, that wasn't startling. That thing over there might, like, if I don't hit the brakes on my car, then I'm going to run into that deer, and that will like threaten my physical health and wholeness. And so like your heart starts pounding and you react really quickly and you slam on the brakes. It's like there's that like panicky feeling plus the immediate action that comes from it. A lot of times we're not able to take the actions, but we get wound up whenever we feel fear. Likewise, when we're happy, when we're like, oh, I'm safe and my needs are met, we have this like kind of lightheartedness, and we relax, and we're more like our eyes dilate, and our vision even changes so that we're more open, and like, because it's safe to sort of just enjoy and appreciate and take in all the information, to savor, take in all the information. So our emotions function this way. And we should expect that anytime that our interests are threatened, that we're going to have strong emotional reactions, often reactions like anger or fear or resentment, possibly shame, if the thing that we're sensing is that our belonging is threatened. And those are just those emotional reactions, for reasons that you'll learn more about as you go through the module. They're often very adaptive in the short term, but if we just sit with them in the long term, they can be really destructive to our emotional and physical health. So one way that we can address those emotions, and this is highly rational, this makes total sense, is to be able to identify, well, what interests are at stake for me? Like, what is being, when I'm angry, what interest is being threatened? Because my body's gearing me up to defend some interest. What is it? Is it my financial status? Is it my physical safety? Is it some cause that I care about? Is it my perception of what is just and fair in the world? Like, what is the interest that is threatened? You can start with, what am I feeling? What is the interest behind the feeling? And then here's the really constructive thing. Is there a way that I can protect or promote that interest outside of this conflict relationship? So for instance, if I've just had a difficult mid-year review with my boss and I'm feeling angry because I've been criticized and I feel like my status is under threat and I feel afraid that my financial security is at risk and I feel ashamed, like maybe I deserve all this criticism, and like my boss's low opinion of me is in fact a low opinion that I deserve and that other people share, like all of those feelings. And let's say that to restore things with your boss is going to take a while, because it will. Um, then like you can still address those feelings, those interests outside of the relationship with your boss. So I can't remember right off the top of my head which interests I said, but financial security. Like one way you can address financial security is to say, sit down with a financial advisor and say, here are, all of my expenses and my assets and my liabilities. And then you figure out like what you really need to do to make ends meet. Maybe you already know. And then you sit down and say like, okay, are there other job opportunities for me if this doesn't work out? If things really do go south with my boss, am I employable in other places? What jobs might I be employable with? Or can I have a conversation with a spouse about like what we might do if we need to be a one income household for a while? Can I talk with family members who might be able to float me some money, right? Like, let's say you don't actually need to do any of, like, let's hope you don't need to do any of that, but it can just be such a relief to know, like, okay, even if things don't go well with my boss, financially, I'm going to be okay. And you can do the same thing with self-esteem and belonging. Belonging is really the one that I would say start with, because often it's the interest that is almost always threatened in conflict. And it is the one that people are they forget that that's what's driving them. We know that we care about our financial interests, and we know we care about our professional goals, and we know we care about causes in the world, but we're in our sense of moral order, that we care about whether we can trust people in our work, but we sometimes forget that what we really need is belonging. And that's one that you can certainly get outside of the conflict relationship. So if you're feeling rejected and disrespected by your boss, are there other people in your life who can tell you that you're a worthwhile person, and that you're a desired member of your community? Sometimes in workplaces, this can be, identity groups can do this. So if you're feeling if your conflict is about some kind of identity-based discrimination, then it can be really powerful to have an identity-based group say, no, you deserve better. And here's why, and we all deserve better, and here's why. This can also be, this addressing belonging, this can also be one of those places that having allies who may or may not be able to empower you to actually get what you want in the conflict relationship. It's still helpful to have allies who can say, no, you have belonging and respect and affection over here in these sets of relationships. it can just like turn it really just, you're kind of taking some of the stakes of the conflict away. You're pulling out everything that can be pulled out of the conflict relationship so that it can be about like one thing or as few things as possible, rather than, because the more stakes a particular conflict holds for you, the more emotionally worked up about it you will be. That's just how emotions and interests work. But if you can take some of the stakes off the table, you will start to feel more well. And it's been my experience, this is not I'm not making any scientific claims here. I'm just making just telling you how I have operated in the world, is that whenever I do this inventory, and you can use the worksheet at the bottom of this video to do this inventory, when I ask, what are my feelings? What are the interests that are driving those feelings? And are there a way to protect these interests outside of the conflict relationship? I'm almost always able to find more peace and security. And I hope you are too. Thank you.